So the sample app that I'm starting with, I've already created the model. So I did a Rails G model for Rails generate model, and I created the same model that we had built by way of scaffolding last time. So if I was to go to my DB folder, I can look in the schema.rb to see what my model looks like, or see what my database schema looks like. So we can see I have a products table, and it has a title and a description, a price, and a stock quantity, and then the two timestamp columns as well. So that's already created. And then I pulled in the same faker seed script from before to give me some fake data, and I've already run that. So I already have a products table that's been created by way of a migration, and I've run the seed script to generate the 1,000 products. And if I wanted to see that, I could go to Tools, and I could run the Rails console, and I could do product.count to see how many products I have, and there's 1,000 of them. And I could do something like product.first to see that I have a gorgeous leather chair. So there's one of my products, and then product.last would show me whatever the last one is, the 1,000th product. Other than this model and the seed script, though, I don't have anything else built. Because I didn't do scaffolding, I don't have a controller, so I just have application controller in my controller folders, and that's just the place that the placeholder where we can put code that all controllers inherit from. I don't have any views yet. There is a layout waiting to be used, but no views. But I do have a model, and the model is currently empty. I don't even have any validations on it. So what I want to do is create sort of all aspects of a portion of what was scaffolded. So I'm going to need to work with some routing. I'm going to need to create a controller, and I'm also going to need to create some views. And I'll allow Rails to create some of that for me. So I'm going to run one of the Rails generators, and specifically I'm going to run the controller generator. And the controller's name. And here I'll mention quite a bit today, like the different conventions that I'm following. So there are certain conventions in terms of naming that you should follow with Rails, and if you don't, Rails will sort of push back. So one of the conventions is, if you have a simple controller that's going to be listing items from a particular model, you typically want to name the controller as the pluralized version of the model, which is going to be the same name as the table. So the table is the pluralized version of the model as well. So we have a model called product, a table called products. So this controller is going to be the products controller. So products is going to be the name of my controller. And then we can put in all of the actions that we know that we are going to implement. And in our case, I want to create two reading actions, a collection action called index, that's going to show off all of the products that are in my system. And I want to show a member action that's also going to be like a read action called show. And I also want a pair of actions to deal with creating a new product. And so that will be new and create. And all of those names are sort of convention-based names. And the reason I know the names is because those are the same names that Rails builds when it builds a scaffolded controller. So it always calls sort of the main homepage for the controller index, and that's where it lists all of the items of the particular model being referenced. Show is always the name of the action that shows a single one. And then the pair of actions that perform creation are always just called new and create. So I'm going to click OK on that. I get a products controller in my controller folder and a method for each one of my actions. If we look in the views folder, I now have a products subfolder, and made for me are a number of views. They're just got a little bit of sort sort of boilerplate HTML in them. I'm going to keep all of them around except for create, because as we'll see later on, we don't need a view associated with create. Create's going to be the action that takes posted data for a form, and all it's going to do is it's either, if the form data is valid, it's going to create that record, and if the form data is not valid, it's going to redisplay the form. In either case, it doesn't need a view of its own. It's either going to redirect to the show view after creating a particular record, or it will repurpose the new form view for displaying some form validation messages. So I can delete this create here. We don't need that. The other thing that Rails has done for me automatically, which I don't necessarily want, is in my config routes folder. It has put some routes in there. And the way these routes work is a route that has a slash in it. The first thing is assumed to be the name of a controller, and the second thing is assumed to be the name of an action. So if I go to the URL, localhost 3000 /product/index, it will load up the products controller's index action. Same thing goes for this. If I go to /product/show, it'll load that up. I don't want to follow that style of routing, and so I'm just going to delete those, and I'm going to manually create my own routes. There we are. And I'm also using Git for this project. I already have one commit, and so I might as well, after adding that controller in, do a git add and commit from here as well. And so this shows me the various new files that were created, and I can say added a products controller with associated views, and I can commit that. All right, so now I have to think a little bit about the routing structure for my application. And again, I'm not just going to pull this out of thin air. I'm going to try to follow Rails's conventions that it uses when scaffolding an app, and the conventions it uses for its URLs are what are called sort of RESTful routes, or sort of RESTful API pattern. So what I want is I want the ability to go to /products and have that route to the product or products controllers index action. And I'd like to be able to go to let's say actually pluralize that, /products/some ID, some numeric identifier, and I would like that to route to the products controllers show action. And I'd like that ID to be handed off to that action so the action can know which particular product to show. Products/new, I'd like that to go to the products controllers new action. And products should go to the products controllers create action. Now, there's a bit of a problem here in that I have the same URL in two places, and we get around that problem by also specifying the HTTP verb that's going to be used with these different URLs. So a GET request to /products is going to load up the index action, whereas a POST request to /products is going to trigger the create action. The other two here are also going to be GET requests. And then I can sort of line things up here. So that's the structure that I'm hoping to build, and that follows the Rails RESTful convention. So you always have this sort of collection URI that either shows all, in the case of index, or if you post to that same place, will create a new entry in the products database table. The data coming from that get, new, and then this will be showing individual products. And how we create these within the routing file is almost similar to how we've defined them here. I use the word get, and then I specify the path for the URL, and I say where I want it to go to. Well, I want it to go to the products controller, and within there, the index action. So a string with a hash mark, where the thing before the hash mark is the name of the controller, and the thing after the hash mark is the index. And then I want to give the route a name, and we're going to see why I name these routes when I want to work with them from within views, because I'm going to want to link to them by way of hrefs. And so I'm going to give this a name of products. So that's one route that I'm going to define. The next one here, a GET request to /product/SUMID should route to the products controller's show action, and I'm going to give this a name of product. And this one, product/new. Sorry, I was mixing and matching my styles. There we are. Products new as new product. And lastly, this one here is a post to /products, and that should route to the products controller's create action. This one I don't give it a name because I've already named the path products. Even though I'm using a different verb with it, it'll pick up the same name. I guess I can delete those lines there to associate the comments with their particular routes. There's going to be a problem. We'll fix it up when we get to that part of the coding, in that here, the /product/ID, when you put a placeholder into a route like that, it accepts anything. So in this case, if I requested /product/12, it would go to the product show action. But if I selected /product/Kyle, it would also go. So I'm going to need to constrain that ID down to a numeric value. Because we already have methods defined for each one of these actions, and because we already have views associated with them, those are sitting off in the app views products folder, I can already test out most of these routes. By way of my browser, because my browser can do GET requests, I can at least test out these 3 routes to see if the default text that's in the views is displayed. So the default text in the views just looks like this. It just sort of says where they can be found, the sort of the folder path. So I'm going to try these out. I'm going to try to go to /products/something and /product/new and see if I get all of that information up and going. I'm already running my server, so I should be able to test it out here. /products. I might have to restart my server for this to actually kick in. We'll see. Oh, it worked. Okay, so that loaded up the products index action. /product/SUMID should go to the show action, and it does. And again, this is just hard-coded right now into the associated views. And then /new. Now I'm actually going to have to put that constraint in place right away. When I went to /product/new, it loaded up the show action. Routes are processed in order, and the very first route to match /product/new was this one, because it accepts anything for that placeholder. So it's not so hard to add a numeric constraint to a route. I just specify what I want to constrain, and then I specify a regular expression to perform the constraint. And regular expressions in Ruby our objects, but we get syntactic sugar for defining a regular expression, so we can use the two slashes. So just like we use like the square braces to do an array.new, the two slashes does a regex.new, and /d means digit, and plus in regular expression land means one or more. So I've constrained this placeholder to accept only one or more numeric digits. So now this should go to the show, and it does, but /product/new should travel to the new route, and it does. So all of my routes are defined. We'll test this one when we get to it, when we get to that part of things. And now we'll just sort of work through them one by one. So this first one here, we want this to display all of the products in the database. So I can go over to the controller. This is a route that's going to be triggered by get/products, and should load and then display all products. And this is the point in sort of our flow of activities. We've gone to the router, to the controller action. The controller can optionally speak to the model. And so here I can say product.all. There I am talking to my model, saving it into a variable. And this is where Rails breaks object encapsulation. It just sort of breaks apart sort of standard OO in that it's going to share this instance variable with the associated view. And so what happens at the end of all actions is if we haven't either manually rendered an action or redirected, it's just going to automatically load up the associated action. So automatically load up the app views products index.html.erb. So it goes to the views folder, to a subfolder named after the controller, and then to a view named after the action. So I can go load that action view up. There it is, products index.html.erb. Could have a little h1 here that says something like Glutton Goods. That's the name of my store. And then within here, I can loop through all my products. So I can jump into ERB mode. I can take that products variable that was shared with me from the controller, and then I can loop through each product, calling it product. I can do an end. And then inside of there, I could say maybe in an H2, I could output the product's title. That's the echo, the equal sign there represents the echo. And then what else do I have? Inside of a paragraph tag, I can do the product description. No, not describe, description. Get rid of some of this extra autocomplete that accidentally happened there. We also have stock quantity. I'll leave that out. Maybe I'll put the product price here. Product.price. Maybe I'll put the word price in front of it. So we'll see if I need to restart my server for this to click in. Typically, if we weren't using Vagrant, we would never have to restart our server in development mode, but because we're using Vagrant, the Rails server can't pick up when files are changed. And so when I introduce new data at the controller level, that typically isn't picked up by the Rails server, and I'll probably get an error message if I go to /products here. Let's just see if I can get that error message to display. Yeah, so it's telling me undefined method each for nil class. So it thinks that products is nil, so I just need to restart my server to make that thing available. So I go to my server task here and stop it and start it. And then back in the browser, I wait for the server to load, and then I see all of my goods. There's like my 1,000 products. The price looks pretty good, but we can see anytime where there should be a trailing zero. So like here, for example, because it's just displaying it like a number, it just says 73.4, and if it was a price, it should say 73.40 cents. It's a common problem when displaying numeric values that are prices. In Rails, we have a bunch of little helpers that help us deal with things like that. And so what we do is we just put in front of price number to currency. And we reload again. And now my enormous concrete table has a price with the 40 cents there. And there's a bunch of these kinds of numeric helpers that we could, play around with. So number to human is an interesting one. You can put in like a really big number, and where's that going to display? I guess it'll display everywhere, every entry, and that's fine. It gives you like the closest human short approximation of that number. So if you don't want to worry about all the exact value, but you just want to say, well, this is about 89.2 quadrillion, well, I'll just take that number and give it to you. There's like number to human size. This is for when working with file sizes. So here it's going to tell me that's like 79 petabytes. And so, if you were doing file uploads and downloads, you could pass the size in bytes to that helper, and you could see it in human terms or readable terms. So yeah, there's a bunch of nifty little helpers like that. And that's really it for the index, right? I've completed all of the sort of the MVC routing journey. The routing started, when you hit this URL, go to the index action. When the index action triggers, load up all products, hand them off to the view, and inside of the view, we just loop through them and display the parts of them that we wish to display, including formatting the price as currency. Any questions about that flow? And that's effectively what scaffolding was doing as well. So let's do the next one. The next one's slightly more complicated. This one here is a collection route. It's showing everything in the collection, whereas the next one that I'd like to do is a member route where there's an ID specified, meaning I'd like to show an individual product rather than a collection of all the products, and I'd like to identify that product by its primary key and then just show just that one product. So we know that this route works, right? I can go to /product/12 or any other number, and it goes to the right place. It triggers this particular view. By having this placeholder in my URL, that means here inside of the controller, I'm going to have access to that inside of a special hash called the params hash. And so what I'm going to put here is a GET request here to /product/SomeID. It's going to trigger this route. Should load the product with the specified ID, and the ID is going to be in the params hash. So I can create a product variable, and I can say product.find, because find is our active record method that takes a primary key, and I want to find params. That's my special place where all of my get parameters and my post parameters go. So it's, in PHP we had the get superglobal and the post superglobal. In Rails we just have params, everything ends up there. And I'm going to go to position ID. And this is now going to get handed off. So I can grab that line and paste it here. It's going to get handed off to the show view. And so inside of the show view, I can effectively copy and paste some of what I have in the index view and sort of repurpose it for this show view. I'll delete what I have in there and no longer need to loop. but I do need to display the @product title and the description and the price. And then I need to indent that. Undefined method title for nil class nil. Again, I need to restart my server. So I'm not used to this because I normally don't develop with Vagrant. And so my server never needs restarting, but that's okay. Start and stop. And the server booted back up. And there we go. There's product number 12. And I can put in product 300. Product number 1. Oops. 1. And there's my gorgeous leather chair. So again, that's working. This is what scaffolding would have done. We set up a route with a placeholder, in our case a numeric placeholder. We constrained it to be a numeric placeholder. That got handed off to our controller within the params hash. We could then go to our model, find the individual product. So in this case we got a collection of products. Here we got an individual product object that was saved to that variable, shared over to the view, and displayed. Up to this point, I've been sort of navigating the site by manipulating the URL. Now that's not what we would expect our users to do. It'd be nice to be able to have them be able to click on things. So maybe like this title takes them back to the index page, and maybe on the index page I can navigate to each individual product. That's why we named our routes. That's why we named them with this as parameter. So we have a route called products and a route called product. And if you ever forget any details about your routes, you can go to this special URL, rails/info/routes, and Rails will tell you about your routes, the verbs that trigger them, the URIs that trigger them, the controller actions they trigger, the constraints you've laid out, and the names of them, with the appended at the end of them is _path, because that's how we actually refer to them inside of our views. So to refer to the get request to /products, I'm going to use the products path. So let's see that in action. Inside of here, inside of the show, I'll make it so that this H1 is a link to the index action. And then I might even move it into the layout, because that's going to be maybe something that I would want at the top of all of my pages. So instead of going and starting to build, we could just build a manual, link. That would work, right? So I could come back over here. I could go to some like /product/ some number, and there it is, and it would take me home. That works. The problem with that is that I've hard-coded in this path. And the way routing is supposed to work is that it's supposed to be fairly flexible. So like somewhere down the line, your boss comes to you and says, we don't want it to be /products anymore. We want the home for all of our products to be /awesome products. Like that, right? And so now the URL is awesome products. But my hard-coded link doesn't work anymore. So I'd have to go through and fix up my views. Now that's not a problem if I use a special helper to build the link and I just refer to the path name, the thing that I've set up with the as. So here's how the helper works. I'm going to echo out link to, and the first argument is what I want my link text to be, and the second argument is where I want to link to, the products path. And so it's just the name of the thing as defined by the as with _path at the end of it. And now when I go back here and reload this page up, it now properly links to awesome products. if I go back to my routing file and I change that back to products, I can head over here and reload this page again, and it'll properly link back to products without needing to change the view. So Rails tries to inject these points of abstraction so that if things change in your code, because like the one reality of code bases is that things always change. And changes in code always have ramifications, and Rails tries to sort of limit the ramifications to changes in your code because that'll make you more efficient as a programmer. So that's sort of one direction in terms of routing. I can sort of route or link back to the products path. How about the other direction? From the index, maybe I want each of the titles to link to their individual products. Well, I have a product URL or a product path that I can use for that, and I'll use that same link to helper. So here I'm already echoing out the title, so I'm just going to say link to. The text for the link is going to be the title, and then here I'm linking to the product path. But we need to do a little bit more here because the product path, in order to be generated, needs an ID. And so for that, I have to provide a source for that ID, which is the product. So by giving the product path something that has an ID, it can properly build the correct URL for us. And so if I reload this page here, each one of the titles should become a link, maybe. I'm gonna have to reload the server. Oh, it's because I was putting it in the wrong place. Yeah, thank you. That needs to be in the index. So I'll cut that out over here, and I will paste it here. I guess I can just remove it from here and put this back to just being the title. Oops. Let's try that again. Now that I've pasted it over, I need to refer to the actual variable that exists at this point in the code, which is just product, because that's what's being generated by my loop. And there we go. So sleek steel lamp, I click on it and I'm at the sleek steel lamp page. And again, I have that layer of abstraction, whereas if the route changed to, you know, just be like /p or something like that. And I went back over here and reloaded this page, and I click on it, it properly routes to /p. So it sort of, again, protects me from changes in my URL URIs by providing the path name. Okay, let's extract one level further, just the fact that, you know, at the top of both show and index, we've got the name of the store that links, you know, back to itself. Let's just go put that into the layout file just so we have some experience with layouts. The layout file is in the views layouts folder. And it's the HTML document that all of our views get injected into, and the views get injected right where it says yield. So I could take from this show, take from this show here, this thing like this. Oh, I'm in Vim mode. Yeah, okay, sorry. Delete you and paste you in here. Oh, not gonna work for me today. Yank and paste. Oh well. I will then do it another way. that there. And now I can remove it from the associated views. All right. Reload. And now on every page, we see that H1 heading with the link in it. This one just returns to the same page, but on any of the show views, it'll take us back to that index page. And so again, I removed it from the views, and I placed it into the layout right before the yield, and so it'll appear above each one of our views because they get yielded into the layout right there. All right, so that's 2 of the 4 routes that I want to implement, and the next 2 are a pair. So the first one, /product/new, this one I want to generate a form that the user can use to fill out product details, and then I want that form to post to this other route. So it's like I'm separating out the functionality into 2 separate pieces. Okay, what that means is over on the controller side of things, I'm about to implement this right here. A get request to /product/new is what triggers this. Should display a new product form that posts to create. And all I need to do in this new action is to make available to the form that I'm about to generate a blank product. And so I can do that by product.new, saving it into a product variable, and then just like the other routes here, that's going to be automatically opened up or shared with the associated view, which in our case is new. Close some of these things down and open up the new. So in the new here, I might say add a product. And then, our gut feel as web developers might be that, we just start, making a form, right? And filling it out with form details. But like many things in Rails, we use helpers instead. So the instead here is going to be an echo for form 4. And this is a form for that blank product that I created over in the controller. Form 4 takes a block and provides a block argument, f. And we're going to see in a moment that that block argument, f, is going to be a product-aware form builder. It's going to build the individual pieces of our form. But even just with this in place, we can head over and look at the view to see what Rails has generated for us. It's helpful to see even just how it builds up a simple form for us and some of the extra things it provides with that form. And so /product/new. Oh yeah, restart my server. And it might also be nice to be able to navigate by way of a link, right? I have a new product path defined for that page. So maybe on the index, right above where I list all my products, I have a link to new, or create product, and that links to the new product path for easier navigation. So over here at /products, oh, did I not restart it? I just stopped it. We should now see a link that I can follow. There it is. Don't see the form because I haven't put any visual elements into it, but if I view source on this page, we can see the form tag that has been generated for us. Here is the form. This is the initial form tag. So you can see Rails has done a few things. It's put a class and an ID on it for us for styling purposes or identification DOM purposes. It's set up to post to /products. So the method is post and the action is /products. And lo and behold, that's exactly what we wanted, right? We wanted the form that is displayed with new to post to /products. And so that's not a coincidence, of course. I knew, because I know the way Rails works, to set this route up, and Rails has worked the way it does, and so there's the route. There are two hidden inputs that Rails provides in the form, and those you can basically just ignore. It's Rails doing sort of extra stuff on your behalf. The first one is this one. It's an input named UTF-8. It's hidden, and it has a entitized value, and if you were to view that entity on a web page, it would be the Unicode checkmark. And all Rails is checking here is the form being submitted by a browser that supports UTF-8 encoding. So if someone with a really old browser is working with your web application, Rails will be able to detect if they are properly sending characters in UTF-8, which is how Rails likes to send them or store them, or not. And if they are, everything good. And if they aren't, Rails will sort of convert the character set automatically for you to UTF-8, so you don't get any bad or conflicting character encoding, which is often problematic on the web, and Rails, it just sort of handles that nicely for us. The other thing Rails handles for us here is a little bit of what's called CRFS protection. So CRFS is a type of web attack. It's called cross-site request forgery, CSRF, yeah. And what it is, you know, if you have a form endpoint, I have an endpoint here that accepts post to /products, it's not just going to accept data from this form. Anything that posts on HTTP to that particular endpoint will be accepted. There are all sorts of bots online that look for open post endpoints and just post to them with you know, just different kinds of attacks. And what Rails is doing here is it's inserting into this form this authenticity token, and when the form is posted back to Rails, if the authenticity token that Rails is expecting isn't there, it just ignores the form. And so it gets rid of a whole suite of sort of rogue bots that are fairly generic that just try endpoints. They will not have this authenticity token as part of their requests, and so they just get ignored. Now, it is easily defeated. You know, you could have a bot that quickly checks the form and pulls out the authenticity token and then uses it, and the token probably has some kind of timeout. If you're within that range, it'll still be accepted, but it does sort of, you know, sort of remove a wide swath of very generic bot attacks. So those are two things that are happening that you don't really need to pay too much attention to. They just happen automatically by Rails. So now we actually need some stuff in our form, and that's what this f variable is for. It's a form builder, and so we can do things like f.submit. And if I go over to my form now, we see a button that says create product. Oh, cool, okay. How about like a label for the title, as well as a text field for the title. Head over there. There's my label for the title and the text field for the title, and it properly associates one with the other, so you can click on the title and get into the box, which also means accessibility is good. So someone who is visually impaired that comes with a screen reader will know that this text field is a title because Rails has sort of properly wired them up with the ID and the 4 attributes under the hood. So if you see here, there's the label with the 4 attribute that's properly linked to the input's ID. And we can do that this sort of same kind of thing for all the different parts of the product that we want to allow a user to set. So we also have like a description, and for that, that was of type text, so we can give like a text area for that one. And there was a label stock quantity, and that is a text field for the stock quantity. And then I guess I can just do this. The other thing is a price. And then reload the form. No, not that. Reload the form. Super ugly form, but it's got all the things I need, right? I can give it a little bit of structure by just tossing in some BRs, right? So this is typically where we would probably bring in some styling, but I'm not gonna go there for this particular example. So I'll just, oh, that's awful. It sort of pains me to have such an ugly form, but we'll leave it. I will resist my urge to style this form. And it's got a place for my title and a place for my description and stock quantity and price. And so if we put those things in, those should be posted to the /products endpoint so that the create action can process them. For debugging purposes, I like to do this. I like to say remote false. The reason I do that is because by default, Rails is going to try to post this form using JavaScript. It's going to try to use Ajax to post the form. But that's going to hide some errors from me if they crop up. So I usually initially make my form non-Ajaxy and then make sure it works, and then I'll remove that remote false once I'm sure that things are working. So one of the things that's not apparent about a Rails application is that it sort of looks like when we click on links and forms in Rails that, you know, the standard things that are happening on the web is happening. But you see how every once in a while that blue line appears at the top and goes across? That's not the browser doing that. What that is what's called turbo links. Every time you click on anything in a Rails application, JavaScript steps in. And what JavaScript does is it makes a Ajax call to the Rails server, and what it's looking for is it doesn't want to reload the entire page. It just wants to reload the part of the page that's changing. And typically that's like the body. And so it'll do an Ajax request for the contents of the body and use the DOM to like overwrite the old contents of the body with the new contents of the body. So effectively every Rails application is a single page app. You load up the full page once, and then as you click around, it's using the DOM to replace the content, and you can actually make it so that it will just change little pieces of the page if you want. So if you want, you know, to create a shopping cart, for example, in your e-commerce store, and you click on a link to add something to cart, you might just want a little shopping cart widget at the top page, just that to change. And you can do that with the way that TurboLinks works as well. So that's what this remote false is turning off. I'm turning off TurboLinks for this particular form so that I can debug it while I'm working through it. So that brings us to, you know, this is going to get posted, right? And it's going to get posted to here, this endpoint, this products post endpoint. And that's going to trigger my create action. And so that brings us here at the create action. And the data ends up inside of the params hash. But there's a little bit of work we have to do with that data to protect it from sort of attacks from the outside world. So where I need a cheat sheet here, because I always forget this strong param stuff. Yeah, that's it. So this is something that was added in a version of Rails. This type of whitelisting that I'm about to do did not exist at one point, but it was sort of an openly known secret in the Rails community that Rails was vulnerable to a particular kind of attack called a mass assignment attack. Because what's happening, or what used to happen in Rails applications was something akin to this. You would do, like, in the create product, and then you would say product dot new, and you would take params at position product, which would be like all of the different attributes of the product that came from your form. And then you would say, like, if product dot save, and you would, you know, conditionally, where's my else? Either, you know, if it's saved correctly, redirect off. If it doesn't save correctly, you do some like validation stuff. The problem with this, of just straight up passing all the params, is again the problem with like outside endpoints, other outside bots or whatnot, being able to post our endpoints. Imagine on your product if you had fields that you did not want the outside world to be able to set. So if the outside world was, well, I can give you a concrete example, because the reason this ended up being fixed in Rails is that GitHub is a Rails application. And on GitHub, you can post issues about open source products that you want fixed. And so regularly, people would post on the GitHub Rails project, you should fix the mass assignment problem in Rails. The fact that you're not whitelisting what you allow to be changed when you receive posted data. And the Rails core team's answer was always, well, all programmers, all good Rails programmers are protecting themselves in some way in their code. So we don't need to provide that as part of Rails proper. And, you know, one day someone again posted this issue to the Rails GitHub page, and the core team again said, you know, this is not an issue. People protect against this. And then suddenly that same user started like replying to the comment stream like from the future. And people were like, okay. And then he was replying from the past. And then he started replying as DHH, like as David Hannemeyer Hansen, the creator of Rails. And effectively what he was doing was showing that GitHub itself, which is a Rails application, included the very mass assignment attack he was trying to get the core team to change. So they changed it. So what I'm about to show you now is how they put that fix into place. And again, I go into that sort of long digression just to show that Rails does take, at least eventually, security very seriously, and it does a lot of things to protect you from standard attacks. So at the bottom here, I'm going to turn on private mode. So that's for, you know, class level private, and I'm going to create some methods that are just going to be private methods, things that cannot be routed to within this controller. In fact, just one thing, and it's going to be called product params. It could be called anything, but what we're retrieving here is sort of safe product params, and that's what we're going to use here. And within here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the params hash, and I'm going to specify that I require a product. So I need to have params that were submitted specifically by a form that's providing data for a product. And then I whitelist all of the aspects or attributes of a product that I'm allowing the outside world to set. And so in our case, it's the title, it's the description, it's the price, it's the stock quantity, and I think that's it. And truthfully, you know, I could, you know, this whole thing could be inline right here. The reason, you know, the better reason for extracting it out, one is that, you know, it takes a complicated thing and gives it a name. And two, if we were going to continue on and also do the edit update pair, you would need the same thing, right? For an edit update form, you would also need to whitelist the parameters. So extracting it out to its own method so you could reuse it in the case of update as well would make sense. So I've now whitelisted all of the parameters that I permit the outside world to change on a product. or to set on a product. And then up here in create, I'm going to create a new product based on those parameters and see if it saves. So we're asking here, is the product valid? And if it is, it will save and get persisted to the database. And what that means is that we can redirect to the product path for this particular product. And what redirect to does is it'll fire off an HTTP 301 or 302 redirect and have your browser sort of automatically redirect to the show action. So this will load the show action for this new product. And if things don't work out, so this is the case where the product was saved because it is valid, and then validation errors if you get here. Well, what we want to do here is show the user those errors and give them the opportunity to fix them. And to do that, we need to redisplay the form associated with the new. And so we want to repurpose the view of another action. We just render it. And so we say render new. And that will render out this view. And so let's try all this out. We might need to stop and start this to get things going. So I should be able to go to create product here and provide a title description. So let's say test. This is a test. There's 12 of these test things, and they're 12, 12, and create. When it's a valid product, that works, right? I got redirected. If we were watching like the dev tools, we would actually see that redirect in the network tab, and there's my new product. If I don't pass some validations, well, that means I need some validations. Model product, let's just add a really simple validates that the title and the price are present. Start and stop my server again. And so now I'm going to put an invalid product. You know, I could have a stock quantity, but I've left the other stuff out. Create my product. Brings me back here. The stock quantity's put in here, but I don't yet see the problem, right? I don't see what the errors are. And so that's the last bit of coding that I need to do for today, which is to put into this view a little bit of validation checking stuff, which I have to look at my cheat sheet for because I also always forget how to do this. And so inside of my form, I can do an if, and what I'm doing is if product.errors.any, and any is just a collection predicate. So errors is an array or an array type thing, and so if there are any errors, so if size is greater than 0, any will be true. And so if product errors any, I'm going to put an end on that as well, and shift that over. And then, so if there were errors, well then I want to display them. So I could say something like, I think I mentioned earlier on, sorry, in this course where Rails gives you some pluralization helpers. So I want to say if there was one error, I want to say there was one error that prevented this thing from saving. And if there was multiple errors, I want to say, you know, there were 2 errors or 3 errors. And so we have this little helper where I can say echo out, pluralize, And then here I'm going to go to the product errors.size and the word error. Give myself a little bit more room. And so what this will do is it'll either say error, it'll either say, yeah, one error or n errors, and then prevented this product from being saved. And then I should list them, so I could provide a UL unordered list, and inside of that I can loop. And so I can do product.errors.full messages.each do message. And on that, bring that in. What did I not do? I didn't close this over here. Everything's getting wonky on me. There we are. And then for each of the errors, I can drop an LI and echo the message. And so that looks good. If there are any errors, pluralize the word errors based on the size, prevented, and then display all the full messages as an unordered list. 2 errors prevented this product from being saved. There's your opportunity to fix it up. If we viewed source on this, we'd also see that Rails would have added custom classes to these various inputs, so we could style them if we wanted to. We could style them in red or an outline or some kind of way indicating which of these things were the problem. And you know, if I fix this up by providing a title, but I still don't provide the price, we should be able to see it say there is 1 error. And so we go for like that. 1 error prevented this product from being saved, price can't be blank. And I can now put in all the values and save my product, and it works. And so that's the full journey through all 4 of our routes. So we've done 2 read routes and a pair of create routes. I'm not going to go through all the rest of the other sort of update and deletes because they work effectively the same. I think I have a video where I've done that with a previous version of this course. So I'll post that up there, and if you want to watch the full thing, then you'll be able to do so. And so any final questions or comments about anything that I covered today in terms of routing or controllers or views? Right on. So yeah, I guess we finished early today. Let's just take that as a good sign. And I won't be here on Thursday, and it's a work period on Friday.